You will learn about Azure NAT Gateway, the Azure service that provides outbound connectivity for resources deployed within an Azure virtual network. Azure NAT Gateway provides network address translation NAT service. It lets all the instances in a private subnet to connect outbound to the internet while remaining fully private. The NAT gateway provides only the outbound connectivity to the internet, so you cannot use it for the inbound connections. For that, you need to consider using an Azure load balancer. The NAT gateway will provide a dynamic SNAT port functionality to automatically scale outbound connectivity and reduce the risk of SNAT port exhaustion. How does it work? The NAT gateway will SNAT the VM private IP and port number to a public IP address and a port number. Those IP would be provided either by attaching a public IP address to the NAT gateway or also by attaching a public IP prefix. The public IP and the port number are then selected at random to connect outbound. Those public IPs will be shared among all the VMs within the bucket subnet, so many VMs can use the same NAT gateway IP address to connect outbound. A NAT gateway supports up to 16 public IP addresses that could be assigned. The NAT gateway provides SNAT solution, but also the Azure load balancer can do SNAT. So the public load balancer front-end IPs could provide outbound connectivity to the internet, and with that configuration, that will use the source network address translation SNAT. But there is a difference here between SNATing in a load balancer and SNATing in a NAT gateway. Let's consider the use case for a load balancer. With the load balancer, each virtual machine will use a fixed number which is up to 1024 pre-allocated SNAT ports. If a virtual machine need more, then it will run into port exhaustion and the connection will be dropped. The VM is limited to that number. However, at the same time, some other virtual machines might have available SNAT ports, but our virtual machine cannot use other VM ports. The port numbers are allocated per virtual machine. That exact behavior is what the NAT gateway will try to change. So with the NAT gateway, the pre-allocation of SNAT ports isn't required. You would have a shared number of port numbers that could be shared across all the virtual machines, and there is no quota per virtual machine. And that will allow for a better usage and better scalability for those port numbers. With this case, a virtual machine can use more than 1024 port numbers. And the limit for the port numbers per virtual machine would not be 1000, but it would be the port numbers that are available. So how to configure a NAT gateway? You would attach the NAT gateway to a subnet. You don't attach it to an Azure resource like a virtual machine, like the case with an Azure load balancer, for example. And a subnet can be attached only to a single NAT gateway. It does not support multiple NAT gateways. And if a NAT gateway is used within one virtual network, then it cannot be used within other virtual networks. And within the same virtual network, it could be attached to multiple subnets. A NAT gateway can use up to 16 IP addresses. Those could be public IP addresses or IP prefixes. When you attach the NAT gateway to the subnet, it makes the configuration easier because all the VMs and the resources within that subnet will use by default that NAT gateway attached for the outbound traffic. So this means again there is no change for the Azure resource itself. We change only the configuration at the subnet level. How much does the NAT gateway cost? The cost will depend on two factors. First of all is the resource hours. So when you create a NAT gateway per month, that will cost $32. And then the second factor for the cost is the data processed. This is the outbound traffic that is handled by the NAT gateway. It will cost $45 per terabyte. This pricing might change, so here I put the link for the updated prices. Enough slides. Let's now go to the Azure portal and create our first instance of Azure NAT Gateway.